Hi, I'm Dustin Abbott, and I'm here today to give you a first look at what is a highly anticipated, very exciting new lens from Sigma, and that is the 14 to 24 millimeter f2.8 lens. And of course, Nikon has had what has been kind of the gold standard at this focal length for a number of years. And really, it's been the one lens for a long time that a lot of Canon shooters were jealous of and wished that there was something equivalent on a Canon system. And so I think that with the Sigma 14 to 24 millimeter, we finally have a lens that is fully competitive with the Nikkor lens at an even more affordable price. So today we're going to take a quick look at the build and the design of the lens. I'll share with you just a few images. It's just fresh in my hands. But of course, those of you that were wondering if I was going to be shooting any more Canon reviews again, great news. It has been kind of a slow period for Canon releases, and of course it's been a really hot period for Sony releases. And so as a byproduct of that, I have been really focused on Sony, and frankly part of that is because I have added Sony to my own kit and I'm playing a bit of catch up myself. But note that I do fully intend to be reviewing Canon gear moving ahead, and while this isn't a Canon branded lens, it is an EF mount lens that I am reviewing primarily on the 5D Mark IV. And so we're going to jump in today, and I'm going to give you a first look at the actual build and the design of this lens. And so first of all, as you can see, it is physically very large. It is also very heavy. It is 1,150 grams. And so of course that is not light. In fact, it's even heavier than the 1,100 gram Tamron 15 to 30 millimeter f2.8. And this has been kind of the behemoth for me at this focal length. And as you can see, the Tamron is physically a little bit longer than what the Sigma is. It's 5.71 inches or 145 millimeters compared to for the Sigma, which is 135 millimeters long or 5.32 inches. So certainly both of them are physically large lenses, and they are both hefty. If you're looking for a light compact lens, neither one of these is going to do the trick for you. They're very large and they're very heavy. However, they are also optically great performers. And just to let you know, I mean, if you've been watching my channel for a while, you've seen me compare this Tamron lens to a lot of different lenses, and it holds up really, really well. The Tamron has been one of, I think, the 15 to 30 has been one of Tamron's strongest lenses optically for a number of years. And while it doesn't have kind of their new design language, it's kind of one of the final great lenses that they made before they switched to the kind of newer SP look. It's a nicely built lens, and it is optically excellent. That being said, I've already done a number of comparisons with the Sigma, which I'll be showing you later on. And not only that, but I've also on Sony using the MC11, I did both of these lenses on the A7R Mark III, in addition to a comparison on the 5D Mark IV, and added into that mix the Batis 18mm f2.8 and the Laowa 15mm f2. And so some strong competitors there. And I can tell you this, that in terms of consistency across the frame, amazing sharpness in the center, amazing sharpness in the edges. This is one fantastically sharp zoom lens. And so yeah, it's huge, but if your priority is getting optical image quality, I haven't done my thorough, series of tests yet, but the early stuff I've seen, this has got some impressive optical chops on it. Now, this lens, as I've already noted, it's a physically large lens, but at the same time, it feels like a very well-made lens. And of course, the one feature that the Tamron has that the Sigma does not is that it has a VC or optical stabilizer built into it. The Sigma does not have that. Both of these lenses have a bulbous front element. In fact, from the front, these lenses look they look almost identical from the front. It's a very, very similar kind of thing that meets your eyes there. And so both of them are very similar in design. However, their two rings are opposite. In the case of the Sigma, like the other art series that I've seen, the manual focus ring is actually here on what almost looks like the lens hood. And so in this kind of front portion of it, whereas on the Tamron, the focus ring is actually closest to you, and it's the zoom ring that's a little bit further out. Now, I've actually used a Nikon version of this lens where the actual zoom ring was nice and smooth. That's not the case with my copy, however. It's still, after years of use, it's still very stiff. I'm not crazy about that. The Sigma here, the zoom ring is closest to the camera, and it's also on the heavier side, but it moves more smoothly and precisely than what the Tamron does. It's still, for an internally zooming lens, and you can see, of course, it's moving a lot of glass there, but for an internally zooming lens, the weight is, a little bit on the heavier side. Now, this lens is moisture and dust resistant here, and it's got a gasket here as well as some internal seals. And I would say that looking at the actual it seems a little bit heavier duty than what I've seen previously, and I've seen language from Sigma. It seems to suggest that that is the case, that this has a very high grade of weather sealing. Now, of course, with a bulbous front element like either of these have, traditional screw-in filters are out. They're not really an option for these lenses. I have seen Sigma do something in the past with a drop-in filter for the rear, and I don't know for sure whether they'll do something with that. But if not, you're kind of stuck using square filter systems. I use the Wonder Pana system from Photodiox on the Tamron, and I suspect something similar would work on the Sigma here. And so it is optically fairly complex. As you might imagine, this is engineering for a at the wide end, 14 millimeters is very, very wide. And I can tell you, comparing the 14 millimeters compared to the 15 millimeters of the Tamron, it's not even close. This Sigma lens is much, much wider than what the Tamron is. And so I think the Tamron fudges just a little bit on that 15 millimeter mark. I think the Sigma, from what I can tell, seems to be pretty close to a full-on 14 millimeters. Very, very wide. And as a result, it has a really, really wide angle of view. And so it has a 114.2 degree angle of view, which is actually just a little bit wider than what the Nikkor, which is 114 degree angle of view. And so it goes very, very wide, and it also tightens up a little bit tighter than what the Nikkor does, down to 84.1 degrees. And so this is the full pop here in terms of the focal length. And so that's certainly a plus, because sometimes lenses like this, manufacturers do fudge those numbers a little bit, and it seems like Sigma has just engineered for that whole focal length. It is able to focus down to 26 centimeters, or that's about 10¼ inches, and it has a pretty decent magnification of 0.19. That's a 1 to 5.4 times magnification ratio, just a little bit less than the Tamron, which of course goes to 30 millimeters, which is part of why it's helped there. They focus down somewhat similarly. This is 10¼ inches, this is 11 inches. The Tamron has just a little bit bigger magnification, a 1 to 5 reproduction ratio, or 0.20 times, because of that longer focal length. However, the Nikon lens, it actually only has a 0.15 times magnification. So another kind of plus for Sigma. It has a bigger zoom range than what the Nikon does if you actually look at the field of view. And it also has a better reproduction ratio, magnification ratio compared to the Nikon lens. All of these lenses have 9 rounded aperture blades, and of course the Tamron is the only one with image stabilization. And of course, the Sigma has one other distinct advantage over the Nikon lens, and that is that the Nikkor lens, it'll cost you pretty close to $2,000. And Sigma has priced this particular lens, I think, really competitively for what it is at $1,299, considering that this, has all of these things going for it. It's weather sealed. It's got all the stuff. And at $1,299, that is, while it's expensive in an absolute sense, it's a very reasonable price compared to the competition. And of course, the Tamron has been on the market for several years now. And yes, it does add image stabilization, but it's also not as wide a focal length. And so as a byproduct of that, it's priced at $11.99. The Sigma, I think, is still a very competitive price considering how much wider it goes and how much more of a engineering challenge that is. Add to that, of course, the fact that it's just as sharp in the center of the frame and sharper at the edges, the periphery of the frame. And I think that Sigma has probably got a winner here on their hands. And so in terms of the actual use so far, the lens seems to handle fine. It's heavy, of course, but everything seems to work as it should. Only one thing I do want to highlight that's not really a problem, just kind of a more to help you to be aware. If you're thinking about shooting this lens, maybe on two different systems, or you're thinking about buying it specifically for shooting on a Sony body, note that with the MC11, at first I got erratic behavior when it came to the metering from this lens and the MC11 on a Sony A7R Mark III. It turns out that there is a firmware update for the MC11, not for the lens, but for the MC11, that helps to even out that performance and give you a better performance on Sony bodies via the adapter/mount converter. And so if you do plan on using that combination, make sure to get that firmware update onto your MC11 because it will give you a much better performance there. So, of course, I'll be back to you very shortly with a more detailed image quality breakdown and show you a lot more pictures then and give you, specifications on distortion, something I'm really interested in testing and I don't really know at this point. And, of course, I'll be reporting back to you on resolution and sharpness and color and flare resistance and chromatic aberrations, and there basically aren't any. I can tell you that already, but lots of good stuff that we'll be covering moving ahead. In the meantime, you can look in the description down below. I've got an image gallery that started there, so you can take a look at that. And of course, beyond that, I also have some buying links if you'd like to purchase one for yourself, and you can follow me there on social media or become a patron. And of course, if you haven't already, please click that subscribe button. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.